Thank you. Sorry for that inconvenience. We do have a technical issue, so we'll prevent the AV portion of tonight. But we should be streaming, so that's good. We will call the Planning Commission meeting of October 3rd to order at 8:50. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, take roll, please.
Van Portfleet.
Here.
Mr. Smith is excused. Sable.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Laurent.
Here.
Cummins.
Present.
Senyuk.
Here.
There is a quorum.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move to item agenda 4, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Move supported. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to approval of the minutes from our September 6, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Move to approve.
Approved. Any support? Support. Move supported. Any discussion?
Just that my name is wrong on here, it's not here.
Okay.
And Susan knows,
All right.
okay?
With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to public comments. We do have a citizen, Mr. Watson, on a non-agenda item. So, Mr. Watson. Just to reiterate to everyone, we do limit comments to 3 minutes, so please.
Hi, Art Watson, 16 North Shore Drive. I know the main purpose is talk about Mystic Cove and the bay, but I do not want Starboard's concerns to get lost in this mix. The moving of Lake Street, as more we look at it and the more everybody looks at it, the only reason why anybody would move that is so that there's more buildable lots on there than what's there now. And as far as releasing village land, I understand that they are leasing it, they leased it as a marina, but there is no drawings on that. My question is, if we lease property and they build on it, are we getting a security deposit so when we get it back, somebody's going to take that building down, or are we going to get stuck with that bill? As far as we really do not want to see any single-family dwelling be zone changed into a multi-family zone. And as far as how close it was brought up, I'm bringing up stuff from the other meeting I was not able to come to. As far as how close the other houses on Flint Street are compared to what they want to put in now, it's grandfathered in. There's a lot of areas like that that's like that. These are new builds. They need a variance. That's my understanding. No variance. My other thing is no variance should be made in this neighborhood. This is what we're trying to keep as a neighborhood. And as far as some of the stuff that I heard, the boardwalk, the only reason why there's a boardwalk is so that they have something to tell their renters that they can walk on. I can walk on Lake Street and see the lake perfectly. I don't need a boardwalk. As far as the boat launch, I don't understand the boat launch at all since we have one 3 blocks from there, that everybody who would be in this would also be village residents, so they'd be able to use that boat launch. So by getting rid of that boat launch, all we'd be able to do is control the amount of boats that are going into the lake. I just wanted to really know that we're not trying to stop anybody from building anything that they legally can build. We're just asking, don't make it where we're changing stuff so it happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a number of residents that would like to speak, and I think this probably would be the best time to get this.
I had a card in for this card.
Yes, sir. Are you Sue Albert?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have you on here.
Oh, am I
So,
next?
no. We will get to you.
Oh, it's not public comments yet?
It is shortly, but I will announce everyone and have them approach the podium. We'll try to keep some order, and just to reiterate our rules, it's not a debate, it's not question and answer. Please, we're more than happy to listen to you. We want to hear what you have to say. Remember, we are a volunteer board. We do have 2 village council members that do sit on this board, this commission. So please understand that we're, I'll speak for myself, I'm not a politician. I'm here to represent my neighbors, which are you guys. And some of you know me and know that that's the case. That's why I'm here. So we'll give you 3 minutes, and I'm going to read off names and then put somebody on deck so they're ready to come up. So we'll start with Mr. Dendelitis from Bellevue Avenue, and then Mr. Ciravaccio from Lola. Mr. Dendelitis? I'm sorry, and you are? And you're, I'm sorry, your name? George Dendelitis. Okay, thank you. Mr. Siriaco? Siriaco, I'm sorry. And then Harvey Stevens on deck. Is it here? Yeah, here is Stevens, I'm sorry.
Hi, Dino Siriaco, past president for Lola. As a group, we went ahead and put together a letter stating about the projects that Mosheri is going to present tonight. So I'd like to read that, and it's a consensus of everybody that's on the board. So the Lake Association met with Mosheri team on August 23rd of 22. And had several meetings and several follow-up phone calls to get a better understanding of the 3 proposed developments around the lake and discuss our concerns with regards to water quality and water safety. These meetings and call were very productive, had a great exchange with them, and anyone would like to see the details of our meetings, they're posted on the Lola website. Lola website is lolainfo.org. And while you are on the website, we strongly encourage you guys to join Lola. It's a great organization. We need support with you guys. Assuming Mosheri gets the necessary approvals through the appropriate village, township, and county and state processes, Lola and Mosheri have agreed to continue working together to ensure our mutual interest in preserving the Lake Orion water quality and water safety. Specifically, Lola intends to work with Mosheri's and the rest of their team and the rest of the community for the matters on the overcrowdiness of the lake, water safety training, enforcement against unsafe boating practices, water runoff into the lake, erosion, and overall water quality. So again, please join Lola.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Mr. Stevens, and then Corey Johnson, Evergreen Trail.
Today I attempted to read some of the zoning ordinances, and I was looking specifically at the MU, and I was shocked at what I saw there, in that it's supposed to be a non-highway oriented type ordinance. I find that's just short of that, in that grocery stores are listed, banks, all highway type things, services that you would be entering an MU district for services. About the only thing it didn't have was a machine shop. It seems to be way over as far as what is allowed as far as the business activity in an MU district. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey Johnson, and then Mr. Sonor.
Corey Johnston, 108 Evergreen Trail. Hopefully my voice holds out. I'm recovering from a cold, but I am COVID negative, so my doctor and the CBC say I'm as safe as anyone to be out, I guess. I'm relatively new to Lake Orion. I've only been here a little over a year, and I'm trying to understand the policies of your government and the Planning Commission in particular. And I'd like to, off the record here, thank your clerk, Susan Galesko, who's, I know you're having trouble with your website. She's providing me information much more rapidly than I'm used to, and so I appreciate that because I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. As far as the Planning Commission meetings, I'm concerned about public comments, which I'm making here. The agenda says anyone that would like to make a public comment at any point in the meeting may first sign in the sign-in sheet located near the main entrance door. It doesn't give a time limit or state when a comment could be made. I doubt that you really want a comment to be made at any point. Agenda item 6 states public comments on non-agenda items only, but again gives no time limit and could be a violation of a freedom of speech by dictating what can be said and when there is no provision for speaking on an actual agenda item. Based on past meetings and tonight's meeting, the chairperson sets an arbitrary limit of 3 minutes for comments, regardless of the complexity of the issue. Since this is not part of the agenda or any known or approved rule, it makes it difficult to prepare comments when you don't know how much time you will have or if and when you'll be able to speak. I was not able to get into the August meeting due to the number of people and could not hear what was said from outside. I emailed comments for the September 6th Planning Commission meeting because I was not going to be in the country. I know the clerk received them because she responded to a question. I consistently received delivery error message to all the members of the Planning Commission, even though I used the emails on the village website. The draft minutes for the September 6th meeting have a long list of those who spoke and comments that were emailed or mailed. My name is not there, even though I emailed comments. There are 4 questions which you can respond to as you see fit. How is the time limit for public comments established and by who? What is the policy for comments that are sent in versus at the meeting? Is it the policy that there can be no direct email communications with Planning Commission members, regardless of what is implied by the village website? And if so, how should those comments to the Planning Commission members be made? And finally, will comments from the public be allowed on specific agenda items for tonight's meeting as implied by the agenda? And if so, when and with what limitations? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sonor, followed by Mr. Fodor.
Jeff Siner, 416 Lake Street. Since the last meeting, I had sent you, Mr. Chairman and President, an email regarding 2 points on these properties, one being ordinance, second being variance. In the ordinance, I see that you have taken action and you've gotten a hold of attorneys, and I'm glad to see that you're getting involved deeply. But in the variance, I would just like to take and read my point here on the variance for the public. We all know that the setbacks are essential for many reasons and are clearly defined in the ordinances. And they define the, quote, working area within a plat of land that can actually be used to construct upon. When I researched what a variance can be used for, it states, quote, an unnecessary hardship. It further states, quote, the hardship is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I agree the variance request is an unnecessary hardship. However, it is the result of the applicant's own actions. When developing any property, one must first draw all the required setback lines from the plat borders. This determines the actual area that can be built upon. In the case of the Starboard property, with an established public road running through the middle of it, the buildable area is reduced considerably. The developer's solution can't be to ignore the road, Lake Street, and simply redirect it, essentially claiming the established public property for their own. Again, this contradicts the variance requirements of, quote, the hardship is not the result of the applicant's own actions. With the setbacks from existing Lake Street, M24, Flint Street, the lake, and adjoining property, the buildable area is extremely reduced. Naturally, an apartment developer wants to maximize his square footage because that's his revenue stream. However, this proposed development would be in violation of multiple ordinances, not just those the developer has presented. If the council and commission truly wish to uphold our ordinances, then please direct the developer to work with the existing properties parameters and abide by all the already established setbacks. Of note, one of our longtime village residents, our longtime village residents are well aware that the Board of Zoning Appeals recently denied a North Shore lakefront property owner multiple variance requests for setbacks. The question is, why deny a current lakefront village resident variance request, yet approve an incoming developer's request for multiple variances? I'm sorry I ran over the time.
okay. Thank you.
I heard it there.
Thank you very much. I wasn't going to interrupt you. So Mr. Fedor and then Laura Gabriel, Jocelyn.
Good evening. Adam Fodor, 33 North Exford. I find it rather convenient that there's never any video for these meetings. This is now the second one that we've had. The last one, there's a great view of you, but no one at the podium. So you didn't get to see reactions from people, including the Mosheris, when questioned on comments they made. So I think going forward, that needs to be addressed, number one. Number two, I think it's interesting that we're doing public comments prior to their presentation. And I think that needs to be addressed too, because we're not able to respond or ask questions because you won't allow us to ask questions. One of the things that I noticed is an email that I was forwarded that's from Mr. Tringali, who was their supervisor, I guess, to a member of Eagle, which is now the DNR. And Eagle basically says that it's a village, anything involving the lake falls into the village's hands, not theirs, which would be you and the village board. So you guys are the ones that are approving all these docks, not Eagle. And it's your decision to allow 100 and something extra boats on a lake that's already taxed. On the weekends, if you go to the DNR's launch, they only allow so many boats on the lake based on parking spots. And then the gates are shut and no one's not allowed in anymore. But you guys are just gonna open the floodgates and you're gonna say it's only for the residents of those areas. But we all know that's not true because the village has their own boat launch now and all you have to do is call the number and they give you the code. They don't ask you where you live or verify anything, they just give you the code. Because I know that because I've called. So I also find it pretty funny that in the beginning of this whole thing, you yourself said that you're a voice for the people, but you're not, because for the last how many meetings, the people have been raising all kinds of heck about this, and you just remain silent. And you constantly say that we're not allowed to ask questions. And then when you call the village, nobody calls you back. It was discussed about the amount of revenue that both the village police and the sheriff's department have set aside for marine patrol. And the village was far short of their allotted number with no explanation why. And I tried to call Chief Rossman to get an answer, but it's really funny because when you call the Lake Orion Village line, you end up talking to the county sheriffs who will tell you they cover 70-something counties and villages. So if you can't explain exactly who you want to talk to, there really is no helping you. And when they asked the county, they said, well, we kind of split the lake in half and we do some and the village does some. And they kind of gave you the same PC answer that nobody really wants to answer. Just things that should be addressed, I think.
Thank you. Laura Gabriel, followed by Jody Hand.
Laura Gabriel, 941 Joslyn Road. Again, I'm the diver. My husband is not here because he's helping out in Florida right now, moving trailers down for the devastation of the hurricane. So I'm going to be speaking up for him also. Basically, pretty much the same things as I've said before. The lake itself, under it, the environment is in terrible condition. And I'm not seeing where there might be a little bit of help, but there is just so much damage down there. The other thing is when you're tearing down these historic homes, giving a nod towards our history is not the same as the real deal, the real buildings. You go to other places and see historic buildings, and it's beautiful to see these buildings in their original condition or close to it. Building a new building that sort of kind of mimics it is not the same thing. And you're going to lose a lot of your charm. You're going to lose a lot of the view. And all these boats out there, as a diver, it's really dangerous sometimes. We have to really time ourselves when we can dive the lake so somebody doesn't run over us. The jet skis are one of the worst, but other boats with especially these wakes, whatever those things are, they're not paying attention to a dive flag. And trying to surface is dangerous. And there's kayakers out there, and I just foresee somebody getting hurt. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Jody Han, followed by Nicole Curtis.
Hi, Jody Hand, 467 Algene. I have 4 items that I want to address. First of all, I know every one of you got a copy of the 27 questions that myself and my neighborhood put together. I know this is simply a time for comments back from us, but I would like to know when is the time that we get any of them answered. One of the key ones was the DNR ratio of number of docks and boats per square acreage of the lake. Where is that tip point between a private lake and a public lake? Is that us as people that live on the lake? It is our responsibility to find that answer. I would put that is your responsibility or the village council's responsibility, not the people that live on the lake. Prior to you approving more boats and more boat traffic on that lake, I think it would be insane to not know what that number is. Number 2, I still don't understand the master plan that we spent a great deal of money putting together. This goes against multiple areas of the master plan. So why did we even put that in place? In the last meeting, there was a gentleman that talked about the zoning definitions for the MU. I sent a repeat email again to this commission saying, hey, have you figured out exactly whether these developments fit under that zoning rule or not? Is it even legal to put them there? Again, I've not received any answers, so I don't know when the time for answers come. We've spoke up as public and asked many questions, and I've heard almost no answers coming from either this group or the village council. And my last comment is that Mosheri put up the retirement village on Adams Road as a look how great we are. I spoke to 17 members that live in that area. They actually turned it down from their planning commission, and Mosheri sued to get it put in place. The people over there are not happy about the development being there any more than the people here would be happy about the development being put here.
Nicole Curtis, followed by Reva Beatty.
Sorry, going right here today. All right, I think everybody knows where we stand on this. You guys have obviously heard from citizens for the past couple months. Nobody's against progress. We're against overwhelming our infrastructure in this tiny village as it is. As you can see, we can't even get the tech going right on our village meetings half the time. We don't have enough police staff. We don't have enough anything. However, I would like to address the fact that we are in a position where I feel like we are getting bullied by a developer, and you guys are getting held over the barrel here. In several emails, Dominic, the architect here to my left, has stated, I have reached out to Nicole Curtis to discuss the options. She has not responded. Just on public record here, I'm very easy to find in the Village of Lake Orion, but I'm also easy to find online, Instagram, social media, my agent, my email, my office number, any of those. None of those have any record of anyone from Mosheri reaching out to us. This has been stated several times over. I also have an email that Dominic sent out saying, let me just bring this up real quick, stating that while they would like to make they could make some concessions on some of these plans, but because a certain party is stating lies and going at them blatantly on social media, I'm paraphrasing because I'm trying to pull this up right now, they are against doing that. So basically what Mosheri is saying is because their feelings are getting hurt because we are stating the facts online and citizens are coming out and wanting these answers to all these questions that they are asking, that Mosheri is saying, we don't have to do it, we're not gonna do it. But they do have to do it because there are variances here that they need. It would be different if everything that they were trying to do was just passé, and it was like, okay, this is allowed, this is allowed. We wouldn't be having all these meetings if everything that they were doing was within the confines and the rights of the master plan. It's not. It's not. They wouldn't be here every month with their dog and pony show if it was, because there would be nothing to sell to you. They wouldn't have to sell it. So I'm stating again, please, we're not saying lies. We're stating the facts. If you'd like to contact us, I'm here tonight. You're more than welcome to speak to me. I think I spoke to your older brother outside a couple weeks ago. He was delightful. And don't punish the other residents of Lake Orion because you have a beef with me. We would like to see some concessions made. My own home that I restored at 23 Heights looks directly at your development. We go from seeing natural landscape of 200-year-old trees to 3 stories, to 4 stories, to parking lots. That is changing the view of what I see. That's changing my rights as a resident of what I bought into when I invested and when I bought and restored cottages in Lake Orion. It is changing that. So please, let's address that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Reva Beatty, followed by Tom Albert.
Hello, I'm Reva. I just wanted to, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but there are a couple things that I just wanted to talk about with the historical buildings that are on M24. Of course, the Darling Cottage around the starboard property is not on the agenda tonight, but the one that's off of M24, specifically 302 Broadway, and the one that sits next to it. They've been there since 1885. I personally like the looks of them when you come into the town. You know, historical buildings are tangible links to the past. They give people a sense of community and identity and stability and orientation. I think if they're going to be putting mixed-use buildings or live-work buildings into their plans, that maybe those could be repurposed and saved. There are some history, especially with the 302 Broadway house. It belonged to the captain of the big ferry boat that went around on Lake Orion. But I just think that some of these buildings could be repurposed in a more purposeful way, and that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. So Tom Albert, followed by Sue Albert.
Sue Albert, 228 South Broadway. I actually am commenting about the minutes from last month's meeting because we had turned in a letter, and there, when I looked at the minutes at this meeting that was approved, there's no mention of that letter. And I had confirmed with Susan before the meeting that it was distributed to everybody. So that's missing from the minutes from last time. And in April, I was here, I spoke out about some other concerns I had about another development, and that didn't appear in the meeting minutes either. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm actually confused right now because is there also going to be a time for public comment under the, after the developer makes presentation?
Yeah,
I mean, it should be
we have a lot,
clear
we have a
to
lot on the agenda, and
Right, I
and
mean,
I'm trying to
I'm-
consolidate this. We want to hear from everyone. but
Right, but I mean,
also,
but I'm confused, are we talking about non-agenda items now or agenda items?
So you had written down here that you wanted to speak regarding Constellation Bay
No, I had turned in another card before
with
that. that
with
I-
a non-public card. Is that regarding the minutes?
Yeah,
I made a note of this to talk to the clerk after the meeting.
okay, well, I thought I should bring it to everyone's attention.
Yes, and you have.
All right, okay.
Okay, so
And
you-
I also feel that it should be, if there's somebody here making a presentation, it should be noted that public comments should be welcome after that presentation.
If they cared, they would be.
So, and as far as this development, my other card, maybe I get 3 minutes each card? I don't know, but I'm
Sure.
concerned.
No, no.
I'm concerned about the overdevelopment on the lake, and I think it looks awful whenever I've looked at developments on lakes where they have 3-story, 4-story, whatever, offices, you know, it just blocks the entire lake. It changes the whole characteristic. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Clark Bushman.
Good evening. Clark Bushman, grew up in the village, 46 Elizabeth Street. You might know some of my family. My dad owned Jim's Family Restaurant in Oxford forever. Chester Bushman, Bushman's Disposal, AKA my uncle, AKA the grandfather of Nicole Curtis. I'm not here speaking on behalf of her or otherwise. I'm here speaking on behalf of me. And so, first thing, couldn't you spend more time worrying about things like fixing a classic place like this and updating what this is instead of this stuff that we're doing? Because I've been to over 1,000 council meetings throughout the state of Michigan in my life, dealing with various issues, and this deal's already done. This deal's done. It's a question of how it gets done. And the important thing is dealing with the issue, which is too many boats on that lake because you don't enforce the ordinance of having Uncle Jimmy, Cousin Johnny, and Sister Rose parking their boats at places they don't belong. I know Carl Sorowski. I know a lot of people in this village, and I live in Detroit now, but you know what? This is my DNA. So I'm saying, let's stop the charade. I just talked to Mr. Mosheri. Deal's done. How you do it. Clean up that lake. That thing's a cesspool ready to die and be choked to death. Okay, so this thing's already passed. So anybody that's here as a resident, I'm telling you, quit complaining, quit citing ordinance number 1.23.5, part 6.2, because it doesn't matter. It's over. It's a question of how you implement it, okay? So let's do it, because many of these places that are there need to go. They need to go, but do it respectfully and properly to what the village of Lake Orion is, what our heritage is. My family's been here to just past the turn of the century. I spend most of my time when I come out here going and visiting all my friends and families, and probably many of yours, at the cemetery and talking to them because it's spiritual to me. So this is in my DNA. Do this right. Do it right, because it's going to happen. I already know it's done. So anybody that thinks that this isn't going to happen, way wrong. Thank you for your time. God bless Lake Orion. God bless America. I love that you do the Pledge of Allegiance and you have God in it. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to old business. I believe we have none. So we will now move to item agenda the 8A, Mystic Cove redevelopment, and our presentation from our planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the planners for the Village of Lake Orion, we've reviewed the applicant's application for the redevelopment of this property, and we reviewed it for compliance with the village's zoning ordinance, as well as the master plan, existing conditions, and other influencing factors, traffic, and so forth. The criteria from the zoning ordinance for the review of this project includes whether or not the use is permitted, And the property is currently zoned MU mixed use, which allows a combination of multiple family and commercial uses. The MU district further stipulates that strictly residential buildings may be built along the lake, whereas any buildings that are built facing Broadway have to include retail on the first floor, retail or service or other forms of commercial use. The proposal consists of strictly residential buildings, stacked townhouses facing the lake, and live-work units facing Broadway, which consists of commercial on the ground floor with direct access to the residential portion of the buildings above. So it's our finding that these uses are consistent with the zoning ordinance section 9.02 permitted uses. And I believe the attorney has some other input on that if there are questions. With respect to the dimensional standards in the MU district, we've gone through each and every one from minimum lot area to building height and analyzed the applicant's proposal and find that it is in compliance with all the dimensional requirements of the MU district. In other words, they don't need any height variances, they don't need any variances from the density, there are no variances being requested for this project. It complies with all the ordinance requirements, dimensional requirements. In terms of natural features and landscaping, again, the village has pretty strenuous requirements with respect to landscaping and plant material. They have exceeded what is required by the zoning ordinance and provided a significant amount of landscaping throughout the project, within the project as well as around the perimeter of the project to soften the impact from adjacent uses. The ordinance also requires that 10% of the site be dedicated to common area. They've actually exceeded this by providing over 22% of the area as common area with an effort to create pocket parks, an area for public art, and pedestrian sidewalks. The ordinance also states that the project should be include environmentally sensitive design. Looking at this particular project, they've done things such as including pervious pavers, using native species for the landscaping, and other things that, again, reduce the impact from an environmental standpoint. With respect to access and circulation, they have one access point from Broadway and one access point from Height, which is a significant reduction in the number of existing curb cuts. They're eliminating 4 curb cuts, which again is a major improvement to traffic safety and circulation on the surrounding roads. And again, they've submitted a traffic study. If anyone has questions, the engineer did an assessment of the traffic study that was done. They have provided for cross access to adjacent properties, and one of the conditions of this is that they solidify that agreement if they get approval. Within the project, they provided pedestrian connectivity, sidewalks throughout, which connect to the village's existing sidewalk network, so they've complied with the village's requirement for pedestrian connections. In terms of parking, they provided actually more parking than is required by the ordinance, and as a result of that, the Planning Commission should determine whether or not that extra parking is balance the request for the additional parking with the potential environmental impacts of that additional paved area. Again, I'd mentioned the fact that they're using permeable pavers to sort of reduce the impact of that additional pavement. With respect to the building design and architecture, the village again has design standards with respect to encouraging buildings that are harmonious with the architecture of the community. The elevations show a mix of traditional materials, horizontal siding, shake siding as well as brick on the foundation, along the foundation. So they have included high-quality materials that are traditional materials consistent with the overall character of the community. But again, that's a decision, discretionary decision that the Planning Commission is going to have to make as well. With respect to engineering and stormwater management, of course, we defer to the village engineer, but basically they provided for some safety measures to ensure that any surface water is filtered before it goes into the lake, and other things that can be better explained by the village engineer for sure. In terms of lighting, we've worked with them since their initial submittal to make sure that their lighting not only complies with the minimum standards of the village, but also minimizes the impact. So all of their proposed lighting is appropriately shielded, the appropriate height, and the appropriate level of foot candles. So again, we've gone through this project in great detail and compared it to the village's ordinance and finding that it's generally in keeping with the village's ordinance. Again, there's two discretionary decisions that the Planning Commission is going to have to discuss. One is the extra amount of parking that they're proposing, and also the architecture that's being proposed to make sure that the Planning Commission feels it's compatible. Additional conditions are that there's going to have to be a land combination of the parcels as the project moves forward. Cross-access easement to the adjacent northern property is secured to the satisfaction of the village attorney. The sidewalk be extended slightly along Heights Road to connect to the western 11 residential lots. That's going to require coordination with the road commission to ensure that that's a safe connection. And then finally, any signage that is proposed as part of this will have to be reviewed separately with a separate application. They don't have enough detail for the signage at this point. So with that, our recommendation is the Planning Commission approve the project subject to those conditions and Planning Commission determination on those two outstanding issues.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tringali.
So a couple things I'll just simply highlight. On this scope, a couple things that we're trying to emphasize is this view shed as part of the MU district that what you guys would like to have as a city. So we have a view shed that we've added through here. Also trying to create maybe a pocket park and what we call a tribute in this area through here. One thing that's a little confusing that people have is we do not own the majority of the cottages. That corner lot is not ours. That's a piece of property that we're purchasing our property from. But we only have approximately about 6 to 7 cabins on our property. All the remaining cabins up front here are not ours. So there's a little confusion on that. We actually only have 326 feet on basically Broadway. Someone thinks that maybe that we're taking down all of Broadway. That's not the case at all. There's about 7 buildings in between there. We only have 2 buildings that we're proposing on this one, and then when we get to the other project, I'll show you there, there's 2 buildings as well. These buildings are modest, they're about 100 feet or 120 feet, and basically we have that main entrance, right through here. So just talking a little bit about the elevation concepts in the presentation, I have the examples that we were using, so I apologize not being able to show those. But basically, these are the concepts that you've seen before that are that cottagey flavor. These have a shake style on them, so each project's a little different, but yet 2 of them kind of coordinate between each other through this. So these are the ones that are basically on Broadway that are the live-work units, where you can get, you know, an artist down below here, or a dentist or psychiatrist or something along these lines that would be through here. This unit is the live part, and this is basically meets the live work or retail part of it that we have through there. I think he's already mentioned most of the items I was going to touch base on. We have parking, and we've actually eliminated a lot of the car pollution because there's actually garages on here. So out of the parking spots that we have provided, 71 of them are actually covered. So you only actually see a lot of parking. From basically Broadway and M24, this is really what you're going to see. From the lake is our under unit, which is actually a mix. There's ranches on this unit on the first floor, so they walk right out. On this particular project and this code, we're going to try to keep that shorefront the way it is, a little more natural, keep the existing trees, and see how that all comes into play as development happens. And those are the only boards I have for this. So the rest will have a few questions, and hopefully I can answer them without having to screen or the other presentation on a little shorthand.
Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioners? Any questions? Commissioner Van Portly.
Mr. Chair, I have questions about the plans and just some general questions. Is this the appropriate time to address those, or when would you like me to do that, sir?
Anytime.
In the Mystic Cove, and I looked through the plans, there's designations listed in there, or there's, and also in the opinions of our consultants about federal designated floodplain. And so I do not know all the ins and outs of federal designated floodplain. And when I look at it, I can't easily determine how far into the actual project development space is the floodplain. Is that only out there in the water? I mean, can you easily answer that for me, or?
Actually, the engineer's here, she can actually easily answer that for you.
Good.
On Mystic, there's a really the only floodplain is on the Heights Road piece. That is the existing boat launch. On the main corner piece, there's floodplain, but it is right along the water, so we're not impacting it.
Okay. And our engineers have reviewed that as well?
That is correct.
Okay. Bottomlands are utilized in density calculations in this.
Only platted bottomlands are allowed in the MU, and those are the only ones that were used. And I think the planner actually can confirm that as well, too.
But I've read the term unplatted, and I've read the term platted. So what are they exactly? I believe in one of the letters from our consultants, it says unplatted.
I can actually answer that. There are, on Mystic Cove, there are both platted and unplatted bottomlands.
Okay.
We differentiated that in our calculations. We took out the unplatted bottomlands before we did the density calculations. The only thing that's included in the density are bottomlands that are in the plats.
Okay. I'm still not sure if the bottomlands platted can be used in a non-PUD. I think in the very beginning you called this a PUD, and this is not.
No, it's not.
No,
Right.
the MU zoning ordinance states that platted bottomlands can be used in density calculations.
I'm not, but also there's the possibility of state law on that, and we don't know what that is at this time. Accurate?
I think your planner can answer that better.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any thing in the State Zoning Enabling Act that would restrict the municipality's ability to allocate certain credit for any land that's under private ownership for the calculation of density. You know, they could allow a 1-per-1, acre per acre, use for density. They could cut it in half, use it for half the density calculation if they wanted to. So the state has not preempted the municipality's ability to determine how much density you can get based on the land that's under private ownership. They very well could say you can't build on it, but they didn't say that you can't use it for density calculations. That's strictly a local zoning function.
On the site plan, buildings 6 and 7, there is a term of PR easement close to the road. What is that, please?
That's just for access, so that the residents can back out in that area as opposed to backing out on the road. It's just an ingress egress easement for the residents.
I believe I saw a notation where they plan on also positioning an underground water detention
Yes, yep.
there as well.
That's part of our 100-year detention area, yes.
Okay, and so that would be in the public right-of-way easement?
Nope, nope, it's just an ingress egress. It's not a public right-of-way. It is a ingress egress easement across that property.
I had always been told that the boundaries for the village run down the middle of Heights Road for Township Village. I'm not sure what RCOC's role is in the pathway that would run alongside the lake. Could you help me with that?
Heights Road, the right-of-way that is dedicated for Heights Road is under the jurisdiction of the Road Commission. So they are the approving agency for any improvements to the roadway. You know, if we do any sort of improvements or touch that roadway, they are the ones to approve it. They are the ones to approve any sidewalks, anything that occurs within that right-of-way. The Road Commission, we need to go to them for approval because it is their roadway.
Okay. I also noticed there's a gas line in the water there. Is that accurate?
Yes. I don't know if it's in the water.
It certainly
We
appears
do our best with mappings that the gas companies provide us. Their locations can vary.
How common is that to have a gas line in the water? Is it something from 80 years ago and it should possibly be looked at as an improvement while this is being done?
That would be up to the owner of the gas line, which I'm assuming is Consumers Energy.
Okay. I'm just trying to get some of the things that I saw here, and in the plan set, and I talked about this just briefly to our consultants and mentioned it to your team, that there's no plans for building 3, 6, or 7. And they mentioned to me, or it was said to me, that it may be somewhat of a cookie cutter design.
Yeah, well, basically, they're all duplicates. So basically, building 4 and 5 are the same.
Uh-huh.
And then buildings 3, 6, and 8 are 2 buildings versus 3 buildings. But the same architecture applies, you know, through there. We can draw those buildings in the next step, but they're basically all consistently the same, which is the building you see here. That's up on the board.
And it should be called out on the plans, though,
Yeah,
correct?
we didn't call that out, but yes, we can call out those buildings that they're the same. We call them building, basically 4 and 5 are the same building.
Okay. And I noticed that in a number of occasions, you've got your 25-foot setback from the wall on the building, but our ordinances prohibit anything over 8 inches being constructed in that area.
Correct.
And
All
you're,
those decks
okay.
and patios are only 8 inches.
Okay, just so you're aware, I just wanted to touch base on that. I like the Mystic Cove design on the building the best of the two. It has more brick. I'm not a big fan of batten, but we can talk about that another time as well. And I think I've got something else in here, sir, if I could, just for a brief moment. I marked these up pretty good. I know that they are a matter of the record, and so I want to make sure we've got everything accurate. I struggled with some of these plans with the east-west, and then also front-left designations of the buildings, front-left, and don't indicate to me what's north, east, or south. I mean, I can assume, but it didn't help me much. And just let me, I think I got one more here. And I think that east-west is something we need to take a look at on some of these plans. Like the very last sheet, which is the 10 of X, it says east, and I think that's actually the west. And I'll let it be there, from there right now.
We can take a look at those.
Yeah. That's it for me right now.
Commissioner Lang?
Mr. Tringali, thank you for answering all my comments that I emailed to you with regard to the dock. So I just wanted to address that with you publicly. One of the biggest concerns apparently is the use of the lake. We confirmed that you're entitled with all three projects to have 176 boat slips, or 167, I'm sorry.
I think that's someone else. Basically, in any ordinance, there's two parts that have to do with it. Section 9.3 basically states that you get 50 square feet of waterfront per boat.
Right, so, and then your proposals, you're proposing around 115 boat slips. So some of the questions I asked, I've told people that when the developers come in here and they say, we're gonna give you this many docks or that many docks, okay, it's not appropriate to say, oh, you guys are liars, you know, you change your numbers. So you're entitled to get around 170, and you're giving us 115.
Roughly on all three, correct. And this
Why is that?
Because basically, when you actually do the calculation, you can't fit that many docks depending on curvature and everything else. Plus, you know, the way we're setting these up, it works with our scheme for leasing, et cetera, so what we have there. So we're sufficient with what we have. Plus, with our talks with Lola, we don't want the lake to be overcrowded as well, too. Our last discussion with them is realistically, there's not going to be a dock in the water for another 2 years. So between now and then, we're hoping to work with Lola, help clean up the issues that exist now, so that when our residents come on there, there won't be any issues as well either. So we're all in it for the lake, and cleaning up the lake and making it better.
So if you wouldn't mind me continuing along that line of discussion, how do you propose to assign the docks, lease the docks to the residents? You know, I'm a proponent.
Basically, each residence has the opportunity to lease a dock. So for example, in this one, if you look at the way the site plan is set up, these people along the water would get first choice, obviously. And then if they choose not to lease that dock, then the person out there would be next in that.
So then comes the question, what if you don't have enough tenants in the buildings to lease all the docks? What if you don't, not enough people who live there want to lease the
Yeah,
dock?
then we can't release them operationally. It's only for our residents only. We won't be doing that.
Okay, so you would have records, you know, lease agreements, so if the village, if we had some kind of enforcement agency,
Correct.
which we don't, for virtually anything.
Correct, yes.
Okay, we have one police officer on duty all day long, somewhere in the village, 24 hours a day, okay? We have a zoning officer that comes out, I forget if it's 20 hours a week?
Yes.
Something, so our zoning
Part-time.
enforcement officer comes out 20 hours a week. So the guy, you know, there's a marine division, which are some officers, some of them volunteer that go out on the lake occasionally. I've been pulled over by the sheriff usually once a year, never by the village. Oh, I'm a sticker, I'm really bad with stickers. So on with the lake. So as far as I can tell, and I have looked all over the place, I don't have the authority to require you to do anything other than the number of docks in our ordinance.
Well, basically, there's two parts of the MU. I think the planner can confirm. But that's what we fall under, or well under that, establishing the number of docks. And like I said, our intent is to keep the lake. That's what our discussions are with Lola. That's what we intend.
So basically, we have some control, I have some control, some say of what this thing looks like. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's on the plan. We have landscaping
Yeah.
around them.
Right.
And the planner can confirm.
I noted with this, you know, you're putting extra effort, we don't have any ordinances with regard to any kind of water quality or water control.
Correct.
And so you guys are putting effort into that. I'm gonna give you credit for that. Now, I had another question about the building height. So I went around the whole lake. I just went, my last boat ride was Saturday. Took my family, we parked out in front of all of your sites, discussed them, took pictures of them, talked to the neighbors. There's a 3-unit condominium complex with 2 of the gentlemen of the planning commission live in, on the lake. Are you familiar with that complex?
I think so, yes.
Would you say that complex, as far as height-wise and look, has anything can relate?
Height-wise, we all, if you're 3 stories, we have to keep within that. So they're all gonna be the same height.
So that building would be representative of the height of your
Correct. I'm not
structure.
necessarily sure the style, because some of those have garages,
Yeah, they have garages.
yeah, so,
Car garages.
so, I don't think style-wise, no, but height-wise, yes.
So I'm looking for a visual representation for the lake people to have looked at to see how high these things are going to be
Yeah,
and
I
what
think
they
those
actually.
would be, if the ones we're talking about the same, I think those would be the representation.
And then the rest of the stuff, I don't have a lot of questions for you. I have the planners here, they've done a thorough review. There's a huge set of plans here. I'm quite capable of either drawing, designing, or interpreting these, but we have a village engineer who's thoroughly gone over the plans.
Correct.
And so the only thing I could ask is, what are the chances that this could become an owner-occupied facility as opposed to a rental facility?
It's possible, but unlike, shares usually keep their projects, keep them long-term, and they're more like projects and part of the community.
Yeah, I think it'd be much more palatable to the people if these were at least owner-occupied units, and they weren't worried about these transients, or, I understand this is a high-class, high-end, but, you know, renters versus owners, there's accountability and stuff, so.
Yeah, most of our owners are long-term. We just don't have a lot of turnover because of what we provide and the product that we have. We expect the same thing here. The lake is a valuable asset, and we'll treat it the same.
So I'm gonna leave that alone, and so then I'm gonna just move on to traffic. Okay, I've seen this enormous traffic study.
Correct.
Arguments about traffic study. I drive on M24 every day like all the rest of you do, so we don't really need a traffic study. The road is overloaded and crowded during a commuting time, and I think we have very little control over the state highway department. However, Mr. Young, when he was here, on several occasions had approached the road commission and the township about changing the direction on Heights Drive. You know, he was of the opinion that the light to the south of that, and then the Heights Drive intersection, that there was a lot of conflict with that intersection, and it may have been better to take Heights to Road back to a two-way street. And this, you know, this might be the perfect time to reconsider, you know, taking that, talking about moving that light down here.
I don't think you can make Heights any wider.
Right, the road is narrow as it is, and to make it a two, or, you know, both way, there's not the width in the road available. I mean, just even, it falls off right into the lake, so.
I believe it was O'Donnell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
O'Donnell,
Okay.
a two-way street,
Yeah, yes, Ken, thank you for.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you look that far up. No. So, we haven't looked that far up. I mean, you're right about the traffic study. It's 300 pages. It goes through pretty deeply, pretty extensively. There are some suggestions that they have regarding Atwater and the timing of the two lights to help improve. And then the conclusion of it is basically that, you know, these two projects are going to have a minimal impact on traffic, and that both these project studies came up with the conclusion that it has very little impact on what's there now. But we think actually by doing some of the things that are suggested with MDOT and the traffic engineer will actually improve some of that, you know, when we do it, especially for safety, especially when we talk about Atwater.
Yeah, so the whole point was I would like, if you, during your study, if you could take a little closer look at O'Donnell.
I think that would be joining us and the engineer.
Yeah, just take a look. I don't want to spend a lot of money or time, but I'm sorry, I confused the names of the roads, and I do that a lot. And just see if that could help with the traffic flow. You know, with all the traffic from the complex going out Heights, and then looping, they'll be looping around and hitting that light. There'll be some interesting things happening during rush hour that we were previously not considered. So I'd like you to take your scope just a little bit farther to the south. And then I don't have any other comments on this project. Commissioner Null? Jim?
Unfortunately, I'd like to come back to the docks, because I feel misled on this project. Mr. Masheri and yourself, in the last three meetings and the last three presentations, when we talked about Starboard first, that there would be no additional docks. Now I'm hearing there's going to be up to 160, 170 docks. This particular project currently has 24 existing docks, and you're proposing 4 new ones down here. That's a total of 28 docks on this site.
Yeah.
So how are we getting to these numbers that I just heard?
Yeah.
Because
This
that's
package-
alarming and disturbing to me.
This package was part of the package I reviewed there, and I can go over it in a little bit more depth. But on Mystic Cove, there's basically existing 24 docks and 1 launch, which roughly makes 45 slips. And that's basically counting it, off of this. And I had a presentation I could show you, so, or I can actually show you. So, maybe it's better here.
Well, I guess my question is simplified. If I go out there and I count every dock that's existing
Right.
on all these properties that you have.
Correct.
I'm gonna have the same number when you're done with this project as I have today.
Yeah, so let's use Mystic as an example. There's obviously a crowding of docks over here, as you know. We only need 12 of these docks in this area.
These are over here.
Yeah. So basically, the remaining that are there get relocated over to here to equal it all out. But we don't plan on expanding more than the 45 slips. It's 45 boats.
45 boats.
Slips boats, correct.
20.
Yeah, and
Well,
basically 24 docks.
24 docks.
Correct.
Tracks with boat.
Right, so that's how this Mystic works through there.
Yeah, if you
So-
stay on the same amount of docks,
Correct.
that's what we discussed, and that's what I heard.
And docks are deceiving because you can have 1 boat on it or 2 boats on it, but basically, these numbers are what we're holding to. This is part of your package, so the planner should have that. And that's what we came up with it. I mean, I did a diagram. It's pretty much what we're doing. Now, in the ordinance, as you know, we're allowed more, but to answer one of the other questions, it's difficult to get that many docks on there, plus we wouldn't want them anyway.
All right, we know what the ordinance said. What I'm going by is what you represent.
Right, and that's what we're representing. This has not changed, and we represented this to Lola as the same as well.
So we'll want that in writing on this document that becomes.
Well, I think this is part of your package. You have this. But we can write it on there too.
It needs to be on this.
That document?
This is part of your package that was submitted last time. I'm pretty
Does
sure.
anyone else seen this document? Because I have not.
I don't.
Yeah, okay, so, I can't add it, but we can submit it. It's not a problem. And then,
Perfect.
yeah, so, and then going along this one, it's the same kind of concept. We're gonna have 23 boats here.
We would like it on the plan that's gonna be the approved document.
Yeah, which we can do. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And it's on front of all of these people,
Okay,
so
so
we.
we're not the ones
clear
deceiving
what
anybody.
We're doing. Very good. I do have a couple of other items. With regards to the traffic, I think that our engineer did just issue a letter. I'm sure that your engineer will get this letter, and I'm sure you'll pass it along to your traffic engineer so that they can make any appropriate tweaks to that.
Excuse me, could you speak to the speakers a little closer?
Sure, I'm sorry. So when they get that, they can look at that. I think that that might help out with the overall that we have. The other thing is that the drawing calls for some bottomlands, but the engineer used 903C7B. That's probably not the appropriate ordinance. You'll have to get the appropriate ordinance to put it on there. And since we're talking about that, the ordinance does allow currently for use of the bottomlands. We would like an interpretation or something from our attorney that just states that it's not in violation of any state or federal or any other governmental agencies that may come back later and say, hey, you guys didn't have the right to do that. The next thing that I have on my list is the work-live units that we're talking about, because all of the units on M24 have to have the work-live or commercial
Correct. Which they do.
or office or something on there.
Yeah, there's 2 buildings in this.
Correct. The village currently does not have any ordinance that deals with work-live, doesn't even have a definition in our ordinance of what a work-live unit is.
We're simply calling that, so it would be retail business, which is listed in that. We're just simply calling it, it's a new terminology.
So we're going to need to define this work-live unit, that it's not actually, if it is part of the living unit, we may need to be able to, if they can live in that level and work in that level, that's not going to meet the intent of the ordinance. The unit, first floor has to be for commercial or office uses. And we should probably do something that puts together a legal document that states what the village, what the interpretation of that is and what it is.
Yeah, we can do that. We have a
So-
similar unit that we have that's rented out. Basically, people are working at home a lot more, so they're using it for their home office as well. So, be home office, small business.
The other thing is, your documents say that the trash will be stored in the garage. We'd like something on here, some wording, again, some type of an agreement that they're going to get rolled out on collection day. I understand all of that. But in the event that they're not, they end up outside and they become a nuisance, we want to be able to take enforcement action against that. Either, you know, by regulatory, by ordinance, or by property maintenance, one way or the other, that we can enforce this on that property before it becomes a nuisance, a public nuisance. If garbage is blowing around, it's out on the lake and it's out on M24. So since you have no central collection points, that we want to make sure it stays in the garages.
Absolutely.
In a kept area.
I just want to circle back. Council, can you please recite, kind of not verbatim, but paraphrase your opinion on the live work letter that you've written to the council, to the commission, excuse me?
Mr. Chair, if that's the desire of the board. And
Please.
I'm not sure what particular part he's asking me to, but I'll paraphrase my conclusions basically. It basically says that the underlying MU zoning ordinance is applicable. It intends to provide for compatible combinations of office, commercial, retail, combination, live-work units, which is, I know we don't necessarily have a specific definition for live-work, but I deem that the 9.0.C10, talking about the ground story being non-single residential use, is kind of what's termed as a work-live situation in the business. It requires a ground story of any single or multifamily dwelling unit to be devoted to non-residential use, just as the board is pointing out. In our opinion, reading and applying the MU zoning ordinance as a whole, the MU standards appear to require that any units abutting M24 must be solely devoted to office, commercial, and retail uses, or if a live-work unit under the applicable MU section regarding non-residential use for the ground floor are permitted, if those live-work units are devoted to the non-residential uses on the ground floor, and that the language of the MU zoning ordinance also permits and encourages exclusive residential use along the lakeside of any proposed development in the MU district, and would exclude office, commercial, retail, or combination with work from being located along the lakeside.
That's correct. We're only talking about the two buildings that are about M24. All the other buildings on
Correct.
the lake must be residential. Can't have any
Right.
live work. But we don't have a definition of live work. When we say live work, might tend you to believe that you could live or you could work in there. We're trying to be very clear that it's commercial, it's office, it's everything. But then we go back to the live work. If we're going to do that, we're going to need that written description so that nobody becomes confused and then somebody builds a rec room down there and they're playing pool and partying down in the live work area.
And if I may clarify, in different words, the MU ordinance allows for single and multifamily dwelling units along or abutting the M24 corridor if the ground floor of those units are restricted to non-residential uses. Those non-residential uses must be devoted to only those office, commercial, or retail, or principally permitted uses as allowed under the MU zoning district. So any of the principal, in our opinion, any of the principal permitted uses in the MU zoning district are the uses that can be allowed on those ground floors. So office, retail, various commercial, whatever's defined in the MU ordinance. So I would agree that converting that into some other residential use is not allowed under the MU zoning ordinance.
Correct, it's not. But we also don't have a definition.
Correct.
So if you
And
prepare
I
a
use that,
definition, we'll be happy.
I use that term loosely when I refer to live work. But we refer to the actual ordinance language that refers to the abutting MU residential buildings on M24 as first floor being only non-residential use, or ground floor,
Yes,
sorry.
I work in a lot of communities that we have
Yes.
live-work units specifically.
Correct.
You live and you work, it's part of your unit. We want to make sure there's a distinct break there.
Correct.
Would it be more advantageous, instead of trying to rewrite our rules, to have the developer rewrite his application and more clearly state the use would be for a commercial use?
Well, maybe one other option, there's going to be some conditions on this. If the planning commission is so inclined to approve this, there's going to be conditions on it. And I would suggest that one of the conditions say that the ground floor portion of the units facing M24 be restricted to non-residential uses that are listed as principal permitted uses in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
I just put that right in there, put that right in your motion so there's no question about it, so that in the future, if driving by, the code enforcement officer sees, someone putting their, their mom cave or their man cave on the first floor, they can say, wait a minute, that's not consistent with the approved site plan or the zoning ordinance.
The plan's designated as flex space. Should that not be clearer as well?
You can do the motion when you change the plan as well, too, the second go around.
I would suggest both. Put in the motion and have them revise the plan.
Who's keeping notes? I'm not, so thank you.
I'm good, that's why I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page with the dock, with the live-work units.
Just back to the docks. Does the boat slip packet get into construction of the docks or nothing like that? My biggest concern is that Lake Orion's it's a Four Seasons playground. And some people come into the neighborhood and they don't want to put their docks up in their yard in the wintertime, and what happens is they bubble. And when you bubble over here, you could create thin spots of ice 2,000 feet away. So, there's kids that want to go out and shovel rinks, and, that's, it's a fun place. We want to keep it that way. So it's just a consideration, the other thing is, if you're going to have temporary docks, now you're going to have a place to put all those, and it's like giant erector sets out of the water in the wintertime. So just something to keep in mind going forward. So.
We have a meeting set up with the DEQ this month in Eagle, so we'll get more information from that. And then,
Go ahead. That's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Are you going to have boat lifts?
as of now, we're not thinking we're going to keep it clean.
It's hard to survive on that side of the lake without a boat lift.
So that's why it's not commercial.
Well,
Figured out for now, so we haven't determined it yet.
if they go to lifts in the next project, in this project, they'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
Because they could leave lifts in here. In the next project, they'd have to pull the lifts. The ice will crush it.
I'll do the lifts, do the lifts fit in a 25-foot setback?
Lifts are allowed in there.
They hang out, so they'd just be hanging over like the other people's, right?
It depends. Some of them could be 28 feet.
Thank you.
I'm good. I think it's a good project. and we should move it.
So I have a question on that live-work flex space parking. I know in some of your renderings, you had them as retail space, just signage and so on.
It's more like a appointment type where artists would call for appointment, you go there, or psychiatrist, you go there. So those studio units have 2 cars in the garage and 2 cars behind it, and then each development has spots for like maybe 3 or 4 entrance spaces.
So being their guest parking,
Correct.
more or less.
Yeah.
And then, I'll speak for myself, I never received that.
Yeah, it might have just gone to the plan.
Yeah, I can tell you of all the plans and everything that I've looked through
I didn't see
with a fine-tooth comb. Okay, I did not get that. All right, any other comments,
I have
concerns? Commissioner Manport, please.
I want to make a mention about the traffic study, the TIS, the TIA. And I feel that it's not complete. I'm only bringing it up because if there's a better opportunity to look at this than what the report I received is, and have it be a little bit clearer, I would appreciate that. I don't have page numbers, unfortunately, on my document that I can recite to you, but it does say here, and this was, I believe, AEW did the review on this, is the proposed multifamily housing and the proposed marijuana dispensary, they put them both together, development, are estimated to generate 66 trips in the AM peak and 108 trips in the PM peak, and I think that's flawed. I think that's way low of what it's going to be. And when people turn on the Heights Road and go west, and there'll be the dispensary there, that will be their ingress and egress, and then there'll also be the ingress and egress for the multifamily housing. That's one way to the west, so everyone, let alone having some questions about the actual measurement of the trips, everyone's going to go west on Heights Road and then south on Kimberly and back around the block, which is used heavily, and this plan did not include Kimberly, which is Orion Cove, where a lot of people go into. That's the only ingress and egress to that development site. And then they're going to come back out west, or I'm sorry, east on O'Donnell, much like stated earlier by Mr. Lamb, and that O'Donnell is going to end up being a problem in the future. It already stacks. You can see at any given time, the light there is not, your term is, I think, signalized properly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think they're going to signalize both of those, both that backwater and there.
Right, but even like,
You know, I think AW did the report, your engineer reviewed it, and MDOT reviews it, and I'm sure there's another go-around to go on that whole report before the
yeah.
MDOT reviews it.
Because there's another page in this traffic study that says unsignalized intersection capacity analysis, M24 and Heights Road. And it has traffic volumes, but then it says future volumes, and they're the same as the traffic volumes that have been measured. Future volumes are going to increase. It hasn't changed. I don't think this report is fair as an overall complete picture of what's going to happen. And I believe unless something creatively is really done, O'Donnell is going to be a bigger issue, such as maybe there needs to be a third lane there, so you could have two, like Atwater, you can have 2 lanes turning north, 1 turning south, some type of solution. I don't believe the traffic report is accurate. That's just some comments.
Yeah. I think we can talk to Cheryl about that, too. She reviewed it, and we can talk to our engineer, see what they can come up with.
And I believe your report is similar to what I was just mentioning.
Yes, and the other concern that we had was that the traffic distribution didn't consider that there are 12 units that can only be accessed by Heights. They're the 12 units that are west of Kimberly. And they would have no access at all from M24 other than Heights. The distribution was based on 47 units, kind of using the two drives, one from North Broadway or M24 and one from Heights, neglecting the fact that there are 12 units that specifically will only be using Heights. So it's a little skewed. I think that needs to be looked at.
Mr. Mosseri.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dominic Mosheri. Just want to clarify a couple things. We don't want to conflate Mystic, that's the item on the agenda right now, with the other proposals. We'll look at Mystic and the traffic reports there, and I would appreciate that. And I think it's a little more clear that way. In regards to Mystic Cove, the entrance from M24, Broadway at that point, has no restrictive access in or out. So both left-hand turns, right-hand turns are permitted. So to say that all the stress will go out to Heights is not a fair estimation. Majority of the units will be exiting, especially right-hand turn and left-hand turns in that main part on M24. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any better. I'm just trying to explain that it doesn't put all the stress on Heights. The other thing, I just want to bring note, in the studies that we've done in the earlier presentations that we've done in the public prior to the Planning Commission meeting back in September, and also submitted to the Planning Commission ad nauseum, we have what the traffic would be based on the current zoning, and there's an office building there, everyone forgets. And there's a hotel that, just because it's a dysfunctional hotel and the other uses are not being managed well, let's take what the traffic would be for those existing uses and compare it to the traffic what we have at peak hour. And it is less based on our use. And I don't want to conflate the retail on the corner because that did a separate study, a separate permit to MDOT and a separate review, which may or may, whether it's come to the village engineers and planning departments, I'm not certain whether they have come there yet. But isolated us by ourselves, and of course a separate permit for the retail corner. They'll have to meet all the requirements. But there was a ask of MDOT, what does it look like to combine the two, which is a fair question. And so that was done. But there also was, what does it look like separate? So I just want to remind that if the uses were managed properly and or they were full occupancies, there'd be more traffic with the current zoning for the uses within the MU than what is proposed. Thank you.
All right. Any commissioners, any other further comments from deliberation?
Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure, would you please come up?
So I assume if they're allowed to walk up and make comments, that goes for everyone in the room, correct?
If you want to make a comment, please.
The statement that you just made about the hotel is inaccurate because that hotel, its usage used to be as a halfway house for people who were recovering that were trying to get back into the community. The lion's share of those people did not have a driver's license because of legal issues leading up to it. So to say that your development is going to have less impact than a hotel that used to be there is false, inaccurate, because the majority of people there didn't have a driver's license. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any further deliberations, questions from any of the commissioners? Any commissioner would like to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Commissioner comments? Are there any comments from the public? Yes, if you please approach. And again, please state your name.
Corey Johnston, I haven't moved from when I was up here last time.
Thank you, Mr.
I've already commented on your comment policy, and you haven't responded to it. Set a policy. The DDA did it. I don't agree with it, but at least they have one. I don't know when I come here if I can speak or not, or when I can speak.
Well,
I signed a card.
you have the microphone right now.
And I thank you for allowing me to
Okay,
come up here.
please.
I wrote up comments. I'm sure others will, if they're allowed, will be able to make comments on the historic nature, the cookie cutter design from Flint, or from Heights all the way up to Flint Street, stormwater, et cetera. Mention was made of the traffic study, and for those who don't understand traffic studies, it only addresses what's called level of service, or LOS, which is how many vehicles you can move as fast as possible. That's all it addresses. There's no addressing pedestrians, who are the people who live here, shop here, go to restaurants here. It's not done. There should be one unless you don't care about pedestrians. We can get into the DDA about the parking at the Lake Orion Lumberyard. It's not on the agenda, but that's going to change the traffic flow. None of that's been addressed. I want to address one thing that has been brought up and not in complete detail, and that's the mixed-use and use zoning. What's being proposed is residential, RM, with a vague claim that there will be live, work, or flex spaces. How this will work is not defined in the proposal information, and live, work, or flex space is not addressed anywhere in the village ordinance. I did a complete word search on the entire document. It's not there. As such, you have nowhere to review or approve it. Your planner's review on PDF page 14 of the 466 pages says that live, work is optional, which implies it may not exist at all. Your planner has stated that the proposed uses are allowed in the MU district. That's true, but ordinance sections 9.01, 9.02A10, and 9.03, there are requirements for how the uses are to be implemented, and those have not been met. That's been addressed earlier. You have an opinion from the village attorney implying that MU may be, even though proposed uses do not meet the requirements of the ordinance, since those do not exist within the ordinance. Since there is no definition or description of live, work, and flex space, there's no way to define, establish, control, or make all these proposals fail the required mixed-use zoning requirements. As you also brought up, there's parking. What's the parking for a use you don't know what it is? I have a corporation. If I hang my name on the door, am I good? No matter what I do inside? Put my stereo in there, watch movies. I have a corporation. You don't know. Or I could invite 50 people over every hour. You don't know. Where are they going to park? How are they going to get to my door? The Planning Commission has no authority to grant variances from the zoning ordinance, nor can the Planning Commission provide interpretations. That is left to the zoning Board of Zoning Appeals, you word it differently, as defined in section 19.04A and C of the ordinance. As such, the opinion of the attorney and the planner are only that, non-binding opinions that ignore other ordinance requirements. You cannot approve what has been submitted without violating section 19 of your zoning ordinance and quite possibly Michigan law. Again, I know I'm being overly repetitive, but your ordinance does not define or mention live, work, and flex space in mixed-use zoning or anywhere else, and you can only act on what is in the ordinance. You may want these developments to happen, even with all the negative aspects, but you are required by your ordinance to not approve what has been submitted, regardless of your personal opinion and what your planner or attorney may say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Rear, 328 South Broadway. I've looked at all this, and from what I can see, they pretty much fit what is allowed. When we look at that live space, to me, it's a great idea, because I certainly don't want a 7-Eleven down there. When you have a business in any place, including the village, you have to apply at the village hall to even put that business in there. So the village will know what's in each unit. So, I mean, I think it has to be a recommendation that, you know, who's ever leasing that has to apply for their permit or whatever to be in that space, but that should be all you need to do. The boat issue is always going to be somebody's opinion. I mean, these houses have 4, 5, 6, 7 boats in front of them, okay? So I guess you can't tell somebody else how many boats they should have when you have as many as you want to have, whether you're allowed to or not. It's important, you know, that we build this community, and right now, you know, we pretty much have a bunch of junk sitting there. There's no historic buildings there because they were never preserved to be historic. So we need to get that historic crap out of our minds, because had it been 50 years ago, the people who owned them decided to keep them that way, that would be one thing, but they do not fit the bill of historic. This commission is here not to answer your questions. They only get to ask these people questions and make a determination by the planner, by the village attorney, and that's their job. Their job is not to answer your questions, so don't expect them to answer your questions because that's not their job. Also, all they do is recommend this. It goes to the village council, and the village council determines whether this is going to happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rick.
I'll be very quick. Like many other people, my biggest concern...
Name, please.
Brian Arson. My biggest concern is the overpopulation on the lake. They addressed that they're, 30% under the amount per distance on the lake. But then he went on to say 2 slips per dock. Does that not exceed the capacity of, I assume, the 15 feet per dock, it assumes single use? And by that definition, if we allow 30% less docks, but it's just the number of docks, what's to stop them from putting 4 boats at every dock? And just piece of concern that I'd like raised. And also in this cove right here, every 2 to 3 years, there's a large underwater gas pocket that raises half that bay up to surface level. I don't think they even know this. It makes the bay almost unusable every 3 years or so. I mean, is that whole bay gonna get dredged out? Like, what's gonna make it usable?
Mr. Chair, point of order. Anybody addressing should address the chair, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Art Watson. I just have one question. The time, the study on the traffic, can I have the date and the time that it was done, please?
Yes.
Nicole Desmond, 33 North Axford. Just want to state one concern. Mr. Lamb, you mentioned earlier that the village only has 1 officer on duty within 24 hours a day. There's going to be an influx of people here in a couple years. And that's concerning because that 1 village officer is already struggling to keep tabs on everything going on. Southbound traffic coming out of Oxford into Lake Orion is out of control. People speeding, not slowing down, coming into the village. Nobody's patrolling that because there's only 1 person patrolling it. So just want to make mention of it. It's a concern. There needs to be a plan in place because obviously it's already been said. This is a done deal. It's going through. There's made mention that you guys should approve it. So this is something that needs to be noted for the future.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
The question occurs to me that we have so much construction going up and down M24. And we're just part of the village and we're kind of like a bottleneck. But we have all kinds of other construction that's going to be going up and down. So their little part is only supposed to be that little bit, but we're going to have all this other construction going to have to use 24. How much more impact are we going to have? How much can this road take? We've got a lot of new buildings coming up and they're all going to be accessing M24 from Auburn Hills coming off 75, going to Oxford, going towards Lapeer. So I think you got even more traffic that's going to be coming as they build just outside of our village. And I think that's going to be huge here. And we're already stacking up as it is, and let alone the lake here. So that was my point.
Thank you. All right. Yeah.
You know, I think you guys are making great strides in understanding this, and I understand that you're a volunteer board. I don't recall if any of you are certified architects or engineers, and I'm watching, you are, I'm so sorry, James. But I'm watching Ken flip through all these pages, and I know you guys have gone through all this. I guess my question that I keep asking at every meeting is, what is the rush? You guys you still have so many questions that have not been answered. Each meeting, you have more and more questions from the residents. What is the rush? Mosheri has stated, they've all stated themselves that it's gonna be a couple years before this construction, it's gonna start. It's gonna take many years to get done. I think at one meeting, he's quoted as saying it's a $90 million build. That doesn't happen overnight. This is something that is going to be a long-term project in our village. Why are we rushing this vote? Why are we putting that pressure on you guys, also on our residents, to try to comprehend all of this right now? I mean, I'm looking at your plan sitting there, and I'm watching all of you go through this. Yes, we rely on our city planner, but we also have, we contract all that out. It's not somebody that lives in our village. It's not somebody that understands our village. It's not somebody that's here every single day, seeing the traffic, seeing the people, going to our schools, seeing the impact this is gonna have. You guys have that. So why not make a motion and take your time to do this so that you can have the time and not be rushed through this? I appreciate the fact that you guys are all doing this and you have volunteered to do it again. But the rush on this is just mind-blowing every single time. People keep saying it's a done deal. Well, make sure all of your questions get answered. You have the power to make a motion, to take more time to review. That you do have the power for. I think that would be supported by, every side. I mean, probably not Mosheri, but I think no one would fault you for saying, hey, this is a huge deal. This is a long-term build. This is not a conversion from a building to a coffee shop or adding 4 parking spots or putting up a fence. This is a huge deal on what is going to be 3 huge developments. I'm just asking, why are we rushing, and why don't we take our time, get all your questions answered? Why are we voting on something when you guys are still going through plans at this meeting to the 11th hour? Because we're not understanding exactly what is going on and it's not clarified. And even the back and forth here, we don't even know what's allowed at our meetings. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, we need to move on. We have a lot. Let's, I think we have a motion that's going to be posed.
I just have one question for the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Carol, I hate to put you on the spot tonight, but it's usually Nick's job, but I'm going to give him a break. So, and you don't have to answer this question if it's inappropriate. So, in your opinion, do you feel that there is some entrance arrangement on this site development that would be more beneficial to the community other than the entrances that are proposed now? I see 2 entrances, which is more than you usually get, and they're as far as away from the major traffic intersections as they can get. Is there something that, if it was up to you to make I didn't see anything in your recommendations with regard to this.
In order to satisfy circulation, I believe the 2 entrances are necessary, one on Heights and one on Broadway. And I think that the configuration, subject to approval, of course, by the Road Commission for Oakland County and Michigan Department of Transportation, are appropriate.
Thank you. And then my last comment is I just wanted to let the people know that we have 2 state licensed builders on this board. We have a licensed architect, we have a licensed professional engineer, we have a marina owner of many years, and we have some equally qualified citizens here. So we don't use our professional licenses in the performance of this duty. It's inappropriate. So, but we are here, we're knowledgeable, and we're looking out for your best interest.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Cummings?
I'll present the motion.
All right.
And we have been working on this for over 3 months. I wouldn't consider us rushing this project through. But I do believe that it's important that we got all the answers that we asked for at the previous meetings. We waited to get those answers. We have good engineers, good attorney, and an excellent planner. So at this point, I think that we comply with everything the state requires us to do. When a petitioner does meet the requirements of our ordinances, we are obligated to provide and pass that site plan. We can put conditions on it, which we're about to do. But otherwise, that's where we're at tonight. So I would move to recommend approval of the site plan to the village council with the following conditions. Number 1, the buildings 1 and 2, first floors, shall shall be limited to commercial and office uses, that parking for the 11 commercial spaces shall be properly provided for on the site plan, and number 2, that the docks in this project are limited to 24 docks with a maximum of 2 boats per dock. Number 3 is that a definition of and uses qualified must be added to the plan regarding the live-work arrangements, and that a business license is required for the businesses that would occupy the 11 live-work commercial spaces. Let's see. That an agreement be written up for how the trash will be kept in the garage with provisions for enforcement by the village if it becomes a nuisance. That the engineer add language with the description that the waterfront setback, the front yard waterfront side is required to have 25-foot setback, and that any decks, docks, landscaping walls or columns over 6 inches in height are prohibited in that 25-foot setback area.
8 inches?
8.
Is it 8?
8, yeah.
8 inches. And that it's also subject to the requirements as outlined in the village engineer's letters, in the planning letters from McKenna, and in correspondence from the village attorney. Would all be incorporated into this motion.
And if I may make one clarification, Mr. Chair, your first condition was buildings 1 and 2 being devoted to non-residential. I assume you meant the ground floor.
The ground floor.
I know that's what you meant, but I don't think it was said. So in conformance with 9.02 sub A sub 10, that all the residential dwelling units along the M24 corridor be subject to the restriction of the ground story being only non-residential use. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that we also get a definition and business license from them.
Just one other clarification in terms of the process. This is just a straight site plan. It's not a PUD or anything that requires council approval. So this is the final decision-making body right here, right now.
That's fine. I thought we were doing a recommendation.
Nope.
No problem.
Final say.
Mr. Chair, and if I may, and I'm going to ask a question of maybe somebody that's more knowledgeable than me on board. I'm not sure the village requires business licenses presently, and I'm kind of looking to the president if he knows.
What's required, to my knowledge, is use
Correct.
licenses.
Zoning
So
verification.
You would name it as maybe shoe repair, and that's what's been approved.
So I might humbly suggest that that's the terminology we use in the condition, that it's subject to the use approvals for that zoning.
Similar to a certificate of compliance or something of that nature.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other clarification?
No, I just want to make sure we're clear on what your desires are.
Yeah, Kent. Yeah, Kent. Kent, did you?
Mr. Cummins, in your motion, you might consider 3 bullet points of the planners, which is the land combination applications for the adjacent parcels.
He included all that.
Okay.
Included all that.
All right.
Included the whole letter.
So that would also include the the removal of 2 of the additional off-street parking spaces as you indicated. The only other thing I have is the notes on the plans regarding buildings 3, 5, and 6, which we didn't have. The cookie cutter, they mentioned that they'll put that on there, so it's just part of the record. That's it.
I would accept those in the motion, yes.
Yeah, still finishing the motion.
Yeah.
Concluded. Do we have any support?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any other further discussion?
The final approval then is now. Who is going to approve the modified plans and who will be responsible to ensure that all these things are done?
All the planning, the planner, the engineer, and the attorney.
We all have something to look at on this before it gets finalized, for sure.
And then at that point, you will send it to the township for approval for building permits? When does
No.
it leave our hands is what I just want to be clear to everybody. When it leaves our hands, and then we have some outside disinterested organization reviewing, inspecting, and approving stuff that we're responsible. This is where we hand it off to strangers. When does that occur?
When they're ready to start with any kind of permit activity, prep, site prep, anything like that, they're gonna have to submit plans that are reviewed for compliance with all the conditions that were listed tonight.
So then this whole project will go off to Orion Township Building Department, and they will be taking care of everything, and I'm just letting the public know by saying this, that we will, at that point, there's other people.
Only the buildings will go to.
Yeah, the buildings.
Sure, Portland.
I have one more consideration. Although Mr. Cummins had indicated the recommendations of the planners, there are recommendations from the engineers as well, such as...
He did
Oh, you
mention
did?
that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Thank you.
All three.
Okay, then I guess we're ready to vote. I think we need a roll call vote, please.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Sable,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Senya.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you very much. We need to move on. Do we need a break?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Just one point, so, because it carries over to the next, with regards to the live work.
Yes.
And it's an important point. They are ADA compliant and built for public occupation, so for certain, the intent is clearly there, because there's a dedicated restroom, and the entryways are all barrier-free. So I just want to clarify that, because that gives you the hooks. That's clearly the intent, we're following through with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, commissioners, do you need a break, or do we want to move on?
I'll take a 3-minute.
All right, take a 5-minute recess, back at 9:47. Thank you, Sue.
Thank
What do you
you.
think, sir? No.
Turn that way.
I'm good, thank you.
I just refilled, I'm good.
Thank you, Susan.
Excuse me, sir. if you didn't start.
All right, we'll reconvene our meeting. Wait for Commissioner Van Portfleet. Okay, so we'll reconvene the meeting at 9:52. Item 8B, Consolation Bay redevelopment site plan review. Presentation from the planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Constellation Bay is a proposed development which includes 52 multiple family units consisting of stacked townhouses which will be facing the lake, as well as live-work units which will be facing South Broadway Street, approximately near the intersection of Atwater Street and Broadway. Again, we've reviewed this proposal for consistency with the village's zoning ordinance. Similar to the previous project, we made sure it complied with the use requirements. This property is also zoned MU Mixed Use District, so the mix of residential units facing the lake and the live-work units facing South Broadway meet the ordinance requirements. With respect to the dimensional requirements, again, we've gone through that and they comply. These are three-story buildings, all of which meet the maximum height requirement, or less than the maximum height requirement of 36 feet. So they meet all the setback requirements, all the lot coverage requirements, the unit sizes, building height, lot coverage, and so forth. With respect to natural features and landscaping, again, the applicants have provided extensive amount of landscaping on the property. They've exceeded the amount of common area, again, doubling it from 10% to 20%. They've included the pervious pavement as well as the native landscape materials in the landscape plan. So they've met that standard in terms of access and circulation. There's 6 existing curb cuts on Broadway. They've reduced those to 2 curb cuts to allow for ingress and egress. So again, that's going to be a significant improvement to the traffic flow on that section of the road. There has been a lot of discussion about improvements at that Atwater intersection, and the engineer can talk more about that, but things to improve pedestrian circulation in that area, as well as traffic improvements in that area. With respect to parking, they've again exceeded the minimum number of parking spaces required. The number of spaces required is 104 spaces, and they provided 131, so they're exceeding the number of spaces by 27 spaces, which again is going to require the Planning Commission to make the determination that those extra spaces are an asset to the project and an asset to future users of the project. In terms of building design and architecture, again, the designer, they've included traditional materials, brick on the base, horizontal siding, which is made of hardy plank, cement board, as well as shakes, which are also a cement product. So they've included durable materials that have a traditional characteristic. In terms of engineering, stormwater management, again, I defer to the village engineer with respect to this. Lighting, same as the last one, we've worked with them to make sure they provided adequate lighting, but not excessive lighting that meets the ordinance requirements. Light fixtures are mostly pedestrian in height. There's some building-mounted lighting, which is downward directed and consistent with the architectural character of the buildings. So based on our review, again, we're recommending the Planning Commission approve the requested site plan subject to a series of conditions, as well as a determination that the parking proposal is acceptable and the building materials are acceptable as well. The other conditions are that all outstanding engineering comments be addressed, that a land combination application for the 8 parcels is approved. Cross-access to the adjacent northern property is secured to the satisfaction of the village attorney, and any future signage be subject to an application submitted and reviewed and approved by the village.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Tringali.
Thank you again. Sorry you missed the great slides I had, so I'll just wing it here. So basically, on this one, I'll just do, I think the planner's done an excellent job of reviewing it all, talking about all the things we did. But some of the highlights that I wanted to point out is this view access that I'll talk a little bit more of as we go through Atwater. So actually, MDOT was one who didn't want the access here. It actually worked out really well because we now created a park area and a view shed through. And then down here also, we created this Italianate replication of the house that I'll get into a little bit more, trying to keep some of the history of that, and trying to keep some of the effect that we get back to here. We have our units here and here that are both along Atwater that are that commercial retail space, similar to the other project. And then we have our 2 buildings that are units across the water through that area. I guess I will jump right to this part. So for the existing house, I apologize, the audience can't see this. This obviously, we know this house here and how it's been modified and changed. Well, the original house, when I talked about Ms. Mateo, who actually owned it, was actually this house here. This is Italianate style. And there's 2 Italianate houses in Lake Orion. The Draco office building is one, and then we're going to place this one next to it. So as you come in, you'll have the 2 Italianate houses. We'll try to refurbish and use all the practical details, and we'll actually mimic the exact same design that they had historically before, and put this all together. This will actually be a unit that we rent out as well at the same time. So as you're traveling down, you'll see the 2 Italianate houses first, and then you'll see our other 2 buildings that will be the rest of the project through there. So this building we kept because it's actually, 312 Broadway, and this was the original house with the research that I did. It's where the legend of the dragon actually started. Interesting thing that I found out about that was that there was an article. So it was Miller was the one who did it originally, and then he actually confessed to the whole prop of creating the dragon back in, I think it was, basically, I'll actually read this to you because I thought this was pretty interesting. So basically, August 26, 1954, there was a first-hand recollection that he gave from John Lawson Miller, and he was an architect in Detroit. So just keep in mind, the Legend of the Dragon started with a young born architect that had nothing to do back then. He created the Legend of the Dragon. So there's more to that I had on the slide in the presentation, but that was kind of the highlight of that. So moving along, this is the inspiration that we had. It's a cottage style that I went back to look at to create this. So this is the look that we had off of Broadway. Once again, our full units going here. This being the commercial retail office space down below. The lift part is up above. Also, we have these carriage units that are in here to provide a variety in basically the type of units we have. So these are 2 bedrooms, 1,200 square feet. So we have a full range of plans we really didn't talk about throughout both projects that vary. So we have ranches, 2 stories. We have these carriage house units as well too. Here's a street or a lake view. And I actually have some photographs of some old Gabriel style. So this is kind of like a shake with a little bit of a Newport look to it, coastal, that we have. This is looking at the lake. And then the last part I'll touch base on is that Atwater intersection. So basically at Atwater now, the 2 houses are 20 feet apart. We're actually creating these houses that are 40 feet apart. So it's a much larger space. We're just mimicking the old sign from the amusement park. We thought it'd be great to do a historical park and a tribute in this portion right through there. And this is what you see through the lake. It narrows with the other 2 buildings, but from Atwater itself, it's basically actually wider, create this historical mark. Actually talked to the DBA about maybe doing a moments in time kind of film that they put together, which would go really well there. And with that kind of in mind, this is the total highlights of it. Open up any questions on this one?
Good, Mr. Chairman. Dominic Mosheri. So you've heard of a swear jar, where you put the quarter in the swear jar in the kitchen. So every time Dominic says the word unit and not residence, so I've already counted today, I think it's about $8.25. So these are residences, and these are not cookie cutter. There's an extraordinary amount of detail, especially in the redo, and we listened to one of the very early meetings that we had in May and then in June in regards to not wanting the fourth story. So we modified the plans, and the elevation on the water, if you bring that board up, is fantastic. I wish that one shows that the tree's in the way, but in your packet, you can see the new architectural details on that. I want to compliment Dominic Tringali, my nephew, and also we have our engineer, Nancy Standish, who really focused in on the comments that were coming in. So that's all I'm going to say for the rest of the evening, but we have been listening. We've made a lot of changes, and also, but there's some outside forces regarding MDOT that actually improved our plan, in our opinion, reduced from 7 current curb cuts that are there, we're going to be down to 1. And it won't be congested. It's going to move it as far south as possible from the intersection of Atwater and Broadway. Thank you very much.
Questions? Commissioner Van Parkley?
Couple of comments. I didn't see stormwater retention in this plan, but yet I read that there was considerations for that.
Yep.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, it is shown on the utility plan. It's a dashed area. It's going to be underground detention. It's more focused in the parking lot area on the north
Okay, thank
side.
you. The MU district application, one of the items in there says that in the MU district, and I'm just saying, all lines shall be underground. All utility lines, power, is that your intention as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just some random notes I wrote as I reviewed these plans. There's a statement in our engineering report regarding elimination of a crosswalk south of the property on M24. Are you familiar with that?
Now, that was discussed when we had met with the applicant, that they indicated, and Ms. Standish can expand on that the southern crosswalk at Atwater is intended to be eliminated.
Yep, so in our traffic engineers or AEW's conversations with MDOT, they were working on light timing, because that's going to be part of this, that if they eliminate at the Atwater M24 intersection, if they eliminate that south crosswalk, and everyone then would just go on the north side of the intersection, that would actually improve the level of service of the light and the traffic flow.
Okay, great. I just wanted to get that clarification.
Again, that's subject to the review and approval of MDOT.
Great idea.
He's working through it with MDOT now.
Yeah, great idea. And I do have to say, in the last development and this one as well, I really like the impervious paving and the percentage of use that you do with that. And that's my only comments on this one, except for, please, again, look at the east-west designations on the elevations. I don't think they're accurate. Small item, but just check those plans. That would be helpful as well, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Lyon.
I think I ask this every time, what are you gonna do with the little boathouse?
It's gonna stay there, and then we'll rent that out, we'll refurbish it.
Okay, so somebody's gonna get it.
Yeah, someone's gonna be able to rent it.
Exclusive document.
Right.
Okay. And then, so the village has no stormwater retention ordinance.
Correct.
We have no stormwater control ordinance. We do have a manual of engineering standards that DPW director gave me when we started a new committee to create engineering standards, and he showed me engineering standards.
Well, I think the planner.
Actually,
Yeah, is there any-
commensurate with our MS4, we did pass an ordinance a revised ordinance 161 in May, where all stormwater management has to meet the requirements of the Oakland County Water Resources Commission.
Right, which is kind of sad, because I spent 7 years with those people, okay? And, useless stormwater retention is a waste of money. What I'd be more concerned is, they don't need stormwater retention at a site like this, because it's draining directly to the lake. And there's no reason to inhibit storm flow. What I'm wondering is this stormwater retention going to have a fuel oil separator in it, or any kind of things like that would increase the water quality? Because the lake is low, and we like to get more water into the lake, but it's the quality of water. You guys are going to have any kind of separators in there? Or?
Well, that's the benefits of having that pervious pavement is the time it takes to travel through the pavement, and the stone and sand layers actually takes that out of the water.
I meant the retention things under what are those for? What are they going to do? Retention under the park?
Yep, so what happens is the stormwater is gonna percolate through the pavement and through sand and stone layers, and then get into the detention that way. And by the time it makes it to the detention, the TSS and the oils and that have separated out.
So the oils will just stay in the sand under the parking lot pavement, and then the water's going to go into it. I was trying to save you some money.
Yep. Not with the pervious pavement, we don't have to.
I think you would be better served to not having stormwater detention next to a lake and have some kind of, separator on the catch basins.
I don't think we want to violate our MS4.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. Just my thoughts on things, because I live on a lake and we're being drowned right now.
Yep.
For reasons like this. Okay, that's great. And then the Atwater intersection, I understand that all of the left turn movement and the inability to move Leo's restaurant over, 12 feet so you could have an additional lane is probably why the entrance got moved to the south. Something like that.
So it'll have to flow according to the traffic report. That was pretty extensive when you looked at it. And it kind of makes sense now that there's no driveway there and that it's a park that we've created. So there's no traffic coming out. So really, you can turn left, then the pedestrians be safer walking across on the north. And then the flow is going to be a lot better, and then we have to coordinate the lighting of the timing of the two lights.
So is there going to be a limited left or right turn action out of this thing? Because in the morning, you'll never be able to turn left out of here.
Yeah. Did you see that last report that came across about that?
The one that was just September 9th?
Yeah. We'll look at that, get the numbers,
yeah.
what it is, I just don't know about that.
So I mean, are you always going to be able to turn left out of here?
There was a concern that was addressed in the report.
Yeah.
The signal timing at Atwater was hopefully going to help address that.
Does it remain a double left?
It still remains a double left.
Yes.
It's just the timing of the lights, because now you have to wait for pedestrians, nor do you have to wait for traffic.
We're all about
Yeah, coming out of it, it's going to flow a lot better.
So the answer is there aren't going to be any restrictive signs saying you can't turn left from like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. or anything like that?
None of that wherever.
Okay, so we'll still have
Right.
open access,
Right.
okay.
I think it's really the timing and the flow.
And then do you have any plans to expand Leo so that I will be able to get in there when all these people walk across?
Put it on the agenda.
Yeah, so I know I'll never get to eat there again. Then there's a question, so the 30-foot easement to the south, that looks like a future possible driveway reserve in front of the Reard's house. Is that what that is?
Yep, it's a easement for his driveway.
So in the future, for some reason, if you were to expand the project or something were to change, you could have an entrance going that way?
No, that's for his use.
That's where,
It's for Mr. Reard's use.
okay, is it restricted to him?
Yes.
In by, like, papers, restrictions
Yes.
of the deed and such sundry things?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Well, good, he's got more space buffers on. Other than that, same questions as the last. How many people do you think will cut through into the restaurant parking lot so they can turn left into M24?
You can't get through that.
It's not gated,
No.
it's gated?
No,
It's not gated.
not gated. The fire chief did not want it gated.
I'm okay with it as long as the site plan for the restaurant. I noticed the restaurant, you're gonna lose half of the approach into the restaurant,
It appears that way.
and then we're gonna have a side access, so their whole configuration, are they currently under review?
I have not seen a site plan. for
Okay,
the
so they
restaurant.
haven't submitted a final site plan? Okay, so that's gonna majorly change
It wasn't shared with.
our last meeting with the restaurant people.
Right.
Okay. All right, so no gate, and only one sidewalk across M24, which is good, and,
And then the boardwalk that leads to public access that leads down that park to the boardwalk, people can actually walk the boat. That's the idea.
so we can all come down here and hang out at these people's docks?
Sure.
Okay, you said it. There's a guy that lives on, he lives out here, and the Home Rule Village Act says that it's our job, the duty of all villages, to remove all vagrants from the street. Okay, that was the original law empowering the creation of a Home Rule Village. So he can go live here.
Sure.
All right. I'm okay.
Yeah, I know it was brought up in the previous discussion, but I just think it's going to be very difficult to just do standard docks in that area. Just because that water gets extremely rough right along there.
Yeah, we're actually, we're gonna be needing to, our intent is to keep that one empty. This already has a seawall on there.
Yeah.
Boardwalk, that seawall. But yeah, we'll have to determine what will go on in this city. If we can do it naturally or not, that's it.
That's all.
Docks. Yep. The docks on this one are again, what do we have? 14.
So you got 14 total?
Have a slide that I'll show you. So looking at this, so basically this is what we're gonna have, 23 boats total, according to the orders. It's 28, we put that.
28.
So we're gonna stick with 23, there's 7 docks right now, 1 boathouse.
Right, the boathouse will be for a single boat
Right.
and no living space within it.
So this plan is different than this plan.
This is really just county boat docks, is what it was.
Okay.
As a reference point, and then we'll adjust those plans. So all of them.
They'll send us those plans.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, these are just existing.
Okay.
So could you repeat the questions and the answers, please? We can't hear back here.
All right. The question was the number of docks there and boats. So it's 23 boats,
23 boats and 1 boathouse.
plus the one boathouse is 24
Correct.
total boats. And there are, how many slips did you count?
23 slips and 1 boathouse, so we're matching ones there.
And so there are 4 docks there now. How does that work?
No, it's not that.
But
Yeah, that's not right.
there's 4 existing docks on the plan.
Correct.
And
So
so,
if you more up actually is where we came up with the slips, because it's a seawall across.
so you're actually going parallel to the,
He answered. It's the parallel that confuses people. The water is a little bit rougher there because of the westerly winds. But
yeah.
people tie up against the side, as I do in my home up north. You tie up against the side
Right.
where you don't have a necessary dock. But we're going to look at the situation, study it carefully, and there's a maximum number of boats that will serve in that max number of docks on Dominic's plan, and that's been submitted. But at the same time, we're not increasing what could be placed there if you call it parallel parking with a bumper up against the existing seawall. It's
Yeah,
not the most ideal situation, though. Thank you.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough.
Well, we'll do it once and then it'll sink.
I'll have your
And we'll
boat
do it
trash.
again. Yeah, especially on the weekend. During the week, you're fine.
Commissioner Cummings?
No, that was the docks. We got the same situation with the, 13 existing, with the 13 live works.
Right.
We'll have the same,
Same situation.
same exact conditions that we had with the last one.
Correct.
Same thing regarding the trash.
Correct.
Same thing regarding the back. They're all completely residential.
Correct.
Same deal with the setbacks, everything. It's pretty much exactly the same requirements,
Yeah, different
subject to all the
elevations,
reviews.
different floor plans.
And the screening is good to the north as well as the south, next to Reard's properties. And the boathouse will still have a privacy wall.
Where's the boathouse, right here? Oh, I know where they are.
I didn't look at fire's approval on this, but when you come into this, it's going to be very tight when there's cars in this parking lot to bring fire apparatus out of that.
I've run that. It'll work.
You draw the turning radiuses on there and showed the parking spaces in the parking lot for the
Yep.
boathouse?
Yep, it's drawn with the parking spaces, and then I drew a fire.
They approved it.
Yeah, the fire marshal approved it.
With no site plan from the restaurant? I mean, what happens if the restaurant starts valet parking cars there?
Right, well, that's gonna be part of an agreement we have to work out with them. That's part of the cross-access, one of the conditions in McKenna's letter.
That's all the comments I had. They're basically the same as the first project.
Commissioner Saban? Any questions, comments?
No. Jim's got them all.
Okay. I'm still, I see it, I understand the parallel boat parking. Yeah, that just seems not, I mean,
These are just existing, what we're counting existing.
Yeah.
We'll update the plans to reflect what we just discussed today.
So I didn't understand that at all. So they're going to park the boats along the seawall?
so they're keeping the 4 existing docks.
Okay.
That are
Are those the
currently
ones
there.
that stick out from the seawall and they're suspended with the, they're suspended?
Yeah, there's some cantilever, I think there's one cantilever dock that's there. Docks will stay, and then in between those docks, they will parallel to the seawall with,
No, that's how we came up with our count.
that's how you came up with the count. Oh, okay,
Correct.
okay.
That's how we came up with the count, and the new plan will reflect the number of, like, 23 boat slips and 1 boathouse is the new plan. We may take some of those docks that are extra in the heights part of mistakes and relocate them there, but that plan was showing how we were getting the number of boats.
How you came up with the number of boats.
Existing, that's what those plans represent. Your plans, I don't think have been updated yet, the docks, but we'll double check.
So we're still sticking to the 115 boat on the all projects thing, and you're going
And
to
this
move them around?
23.
23.
Plus the boathouse.
That's 11 docks with maximum of 2 boats per dock. That's 22 plus 1 in the boathouse. That's how we're getting 23.
Yeah, correct. Remember, there's 23 slips at that one part of heights, we only need 12 there, so we're bringing those around.
To here.
Correct. So the idea is to keep the same amount of customers.
First level on the lake. Front half is gonna be the garage. What's the second half towards the lake?
On these units, it's all living space.
So living.
Right.
Is that like the living room?
Yep, it'd be the living room on both. There's a unit, and then there's a master bedroom, and there's another unit that has a living room and bedroom in front on the top.
Okay.
Commissioner
I just wanted to add, I want to thank the Masheri Development Team for the Italianate house. I think that's good for the community that you're maintaining that, and it's actually going to be really cool when you get done with it. I was looking at it and the interior layout, and it's going to be a whole lot better than what we currently have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. If we don't have any other further questions.
No, they just, you really should seriously consider the dock, the hoists, boat lifts on this particular project. I don't know if you've ever been on this lake or really other than visiting, but when the northwest wind cometh and the wake boats ride by, you can get, you know, what do you think, 2.5-foot waves?
Yeah, easy.
So you'll be dealing
Well, it's
with
Sunday to
those.
Saturday, that's tough. The rest of the time it's fine.
It'll be a problem for you later because you can't get them.
I'd like to make a comment. There's other solutions that won't require a freestanding apparatus that's view blocking.
Right, the arm things and all that.
So,
Will anyone from the public that would like to make any comments, please? And if you have a question, please address it to me. Try to get you answers.
Corey Johnston, again, my voice is going. I want to address just two issues that have come up. The developer has stated that the traffic will be less than could have happened. In the logic world, that's called a false equivalency. You can't say you're better than what doesn't exist and what has never existed. The three developments they have, and I know one is not on the agenda, have about 150 units, 300 plus cars. They're providing more than that in parking spots. Plus you have the live work, whatever that is, which you have no idea what traffic that's going to generate or the parking. Your engineer was up here saying we're going to eliminate a crosswalk so we can get more traffic moving faster, a better LOS, level of service. I know of no municipality that benefits from more people driving faster through your town. You can get more gravel haulers from Oxford, you can get more people driving to the Orion plant, you can get more people going to FCA, but it does not help Lake Orion. I live right across the street from this in the Atwater condos. I walk across that street. The Shell station happens to have decent bagels. I don't cross at the crossing because it's dangerous as hell. I cross in the middle of the street because I can go halfway across the left turn lane and do the rest of it. You want to put more traffic on there and allow it and say it's somehow better. It's not. I walk, I'm old, I need the exercise, I bike. Pink Creek Trail is right there. It's a great place to downtown. This is not going to help because all the people that go into Masheri's developments are not going to walk to your downtown and use your restaurants. They're going to drive. We won't get into the DDA and parking. But this just makes it worse. And to claim it makes it better is just ridiculous. One final comment, and then I'll sit down. I'll go home. The viewscapes they're proposing. Consolation Bay in particular, although starboard is just as bad. It's 42 feet wide at Atwater. It narrows to 21 and some odd number at the back. The buildings are 40 feet high. In that space, which might be a nice pocket park, they're planting trees, deciduous and birch, I believe. You won't see the water. And if you do see the water, it's going to be such a small little area. You're certainly not going to see it while driving, not safely anyway. You'll barely be able to see it walking because it's going to be screened. There is no viewscape there. The starboard one is even worse because what you're looking at is the Green Park parking lot, the fence, and the toilet rooms. It's not a viewscape. You're not creating a viewscape of the lake. It's a nice park. Other than the fact that to walk through that park from Atwater to the boardwalk, whatever they're putting it, there's 70 feet of driveways for the parking, at the intersection of all the parking. Good luck for pedestrians. If you don't care about pedestrians and people, fine, it's a great plan. I think you should care about the people. That's who makes your community, not the cars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. I second all that. I think it's a sad day when everyone sitting up here is cheering on demolishing some of our historic buildings here. I'm just going to point that out. No replication is better. The greenest building is the one left standing. I think you guys are all forgetting the ecological impact that these developments have. I haven't heard anyone address long-term. Have we asked them to put a cap to where there will be no STRs in here, short-term rentals? No one's brought that up at all. Airbnb is a huge business. These are all going to be rental units. What precautions are you guys taking as a board to make sure that these don't turn into transient, turnover, one-time use? Again, We don't know how you're identifying, I'm sorry, what is it? Work, live, love, learn, work, live, play. I don't even know, but you guys, even as a village council, our village attorneys are even swapping over here, like, we don't have a definition for it. So you guys haven't put this into a plan to make sure that in like 10, 15, 20 years, that this doesn't turn into a transient thing. Everyone hates the Orion Motel because they say it's so transient. So let's look at that too. Put some conditions on there that at absolutely no time, even if it does get overturned within the village, can these be short-term rentals, that these can be vacation rentals, that these can be any sort of use for that. I think that's a huge thing that no one has brought up at all. The other thing that, again, we keep talking about and giving them kudos for creating greenscape. You guys, they're taking away greenscape. I don't know if you've walked these sites. I would love to know how many of you have actually walked these sites. But there's a lot of green space behind that Orion Motel, a lot. Lovely lawn, actually, very lovely. That's all gone. So when we say like, oh, they're gonna give us this or they're gonna give us that, they're not. We're actually depleting green space and views of the lake. We're also depleting pedestrian use because you are adding more traffic. There's no traffic right there right now because they're vacant, but there has been less traffic over the years. Now it's gonna be increasing tenfold. The other thing is, let's walk behind log cabins right now. There's no boats there, and not just because you guys said, everybody said they were gonna drain the lake and then they didn't drain the lake and everyone's pulled their boats, but there hasn't been boats there for years. There's none. And now we have 48 boats there, you guys. So I don't think that that's being addressed. I don't think most of the residents are really aware of that impact or have walked those sites. And again, let's look at what this is going to be in 20 or 30 years. You guys are going to sit here for a few years, few months, but those of us who have committed to being in Lake Orion are going to be here for the long term. And we need to make sure that this is sustainable use of the property. And right now, I don't think the majority of residents are saying that it is. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure. Reva, you be next.
Jeff Steiner, 416 Lake Street. Just like, is the Orion Boathouse project still alive? Is that still moving, that restaurant? As far as you know? Because is that's going to bring a lot more traffic, is this the point I'm bringing? You know, because that's adjacent to this. And right now, that whole stretch, like Nicole says, there's no traffic because it's pretty much a dormant area. Well, that's all going to change with the Orion Boathouse in addition to this residency. So just want to throw that fact in there. There's another little property that's going to be getting a lot of volume to it.
Thank you.
Hi, Reva Beatty. Just wanted to point one thing out with the boat slips. If there could be something maybe in their lease agreement that says that the boat slips can only be for people that are registered to that address as far as the boat goes, that I know it's not enforced on our lake, but it actually is with the DNR. We're supposed to have any vessel that's in front of our house is supposed to be registered to that address. So I would hope maybe that would be in the lease agreement. Secondly, the boathouses got brought up in one of the properties, and I believe Mr. Tringali just said that they were going to rent that out. I just want to make sure again that it's going to only be to the residences that live there, because with the number of residences at Starboard, it's over the amount of docks that they have. So there would be extra dock slips at Starboard. My one concern with Consolation Bay or any of these properties, there's really not room for any hoists to be brought up onto the land that I would think, and still have room for a public boardwalk. Also, I know this is just a silly one, but the dragon story did not start at the Italianate house. It actually originated at the Darling Cottage. And that's in the Orion Review. That's all.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right, commissioners, any further deliberation?
I only have one for the surveyor.
survey?
On your site plan, and it's going to be the same on the previous one, under note 1 on your site plan, you use the word option, live, work. You need to remove that word option. It's not an option. It has to be
Yep.
a commercial or office use.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it, okay. Anyone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion for Constellation Bay. That basically, it's going to include all of the comments from the previous, I'll make it easier, it includes all the comments from the previous one regarding the buildings. The only difference is that with regards to the boats, there will be a maximum of 11 docks, which will accommodate a maximum of 2 boats per dock for a total of 22, plus 1 boathouse, which will have 1 boat for a total of a maximum of 23 boats. Other than that, all the verbiage in the previous motion would apply to this same motion, including all the letters, all the planning letter, engineering letter, attorney's letter.
Support?
Second.
Supported. Any other further comments, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Sable,
Yes.
Lorant,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Senyuk.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. So now we'll move on to our new business. Thank you, I'm sorry, Mr. Tringali. Thank you very much. Sorry for the AV issues.
Thank you. And just one comment, Ms. Beatty mentioned regarding the leases matching for the dockage for the boats. Yes, that's an imperative. We will do that. We don't intend, we will.
Thank
But thank you for reminding us of that.
Appreciate that, thank you. We'll try to move along our new business. McKenna's planning and monthly report.
I'll make
Is
a
that
motion.
received and filed?
I'll make a motion, receive and file.
Second.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. New business is an RRC training strategy and calendar.
Motion, receive and file.
Second.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Commissioners' comments. Mr. Sable? Commissioner Durant?
Well, I see that people took my advice and are attending our meetings, which is good to see because it's good to hear from the public. Sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't. But we're trying to make the village a better place to live.
Doesn't feel like it, I'll be honest.
Well,
Commissioner Van Portfleet.
I just want to, on planning and zoning, I have the desire, I've been looking for the way, talking with some additional people in our neighboring communities about creating something such as a corridor solution team. A team that could get together, and I had made some notes about what would that do, and it would be communities like Auburn Hills, Oxford, Orion Township, Orion Village, Oxford Village, Metamora, our corridor. Anybody that's associated, Oakland Township, so on and so forth. And just get together and apply some pressure and have good discussion with MDOT about a lot of different things, all the way from traffic calming to pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, lighting, signal, light timing. There's some good things I think could come out of it. Even some east and west corridor improvement that might help utilize Adams Road a little bit more or something like that, because we've got a lot of traffic coming at us, and to start talking about and trying to create a plan. So I just want to throw that out there. I'd like to have some feedback from all of you and anybody else regarding what that possibility, I think it could be something that could work for us. And then I would like to make this, the absolute request that in council packets going forward, we have page numbers that show. It was quite a detriment for me to go through and write my notes, but I can't reference a page number because they're either cut off or they're not there. And certainly would welcome that. Thank you. That's it for me tonight.
Commissioner Lamb, comments?
So my comment about these packets, okay, are this is a recycling bin. I would have rather left all that paper in the printer. I wouldn't mind having a synopsis of the planner's comments, the engineer's comments, the attorney's comments, and the one site plan, and the rest of it could be online and digital. Okay, but carrying the big boxes of paper, I look at everything online. So I'm going to go back to part paper, part digital. This is the second ginormous box of paper I threw away last time. I just left it at home. Thank you all for coming. What it does help when you come and complain and say what's on your mind, it makes it much easier for the Planning Commission to tell the developers no. So, when you're trapped in this room with the developer and he's all got a beautiful presentation, there's no comments from the public whatsoever. What basis, do I have to go to your houses to find you? So I really appreciate you coming, and I love to hear all of you speak. Okay, I'll stay here all night if I have to. I don't want to, but I will. So I really appreciate you coming. I believe that the taxes that we get from these projects, once we do something about the DDA tax capture, we can spend on some stuff for the people. It's estimated it's going to be $500,000 to $750,000 a year in additional revenue that would basically double the DDA's budget. All right, and actually it's going to triple it. So what I didn't mention to you last time is when the DDA captures $700,000 from O'Sherry's projects with village tax revenues, they're probably going to get another $700,000 in township tax revenues. They might actually double the budget of the village tax collection.
Isn't there a committee working on that right now, though, Mike? What's the update on that?
I just want to talk.
I know, you always like to talk about this topic.
Yeah, and so I'm going to continue to talk about it until it's something done. And so we'll see what happens. Okay? We'll see what happens. So thank you for coming, and I appreciate you speaking. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate all the comments too. Being new to this, it's very interesting to see how it all goes down, but I do appreciate all the comments that everyone got up and made today.
Yes, I do have one comment, and it's directed to the administration. I found it interesting, and I wasn't aware of this item, but I'd like to see that we need to amend the ordinances and develop a sign-in sheet that establishes the time limits and policies for what we're going to discuss on non-agenda and agenda items, so that the residents and everyone speaking knows the policy and procedure of the Planning Commission. And I think that's important that we can do that. And of course, we should take public comment after the petitioner's presentation so that they do have a clear understanding of what's going on. If we can get that incorporated into a nice little document, I think it'd be great. They can access it online. The sign-in sheet can repeat some of it. We'll have it out here. I think it's good, Mr. Chairman. And again, we don't always have projects of this magnitude in the village, but every one of them does impact someone somehow. So we do take into consideration everything that we possibly can do before we decide on an item. And thank you for being here.
Commissioner Sable. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for being here. And contrary, I live in the area, and I walk through those areas. And so when your comments, and hopefully questions got answered when they were having their discussion and their briefings, but to think that I don't live here is very insulting to me. I have a family, and so I am worried about walking, pedestrians, crosswalks. especially when my 12-year-old wants to take his bike and go across M24. So these things they hit home with us too. Don't think we don't care.
You didn't vote that way.
It doesn't matter how I look.
I'm saying, you
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for being here. And you know what? It's the reason I got on this was I used to sit out there. Thank you for coming. Okay, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support, and motion carries.